Hello, German Discworld Convention. My name's Jason, and for the last 26 years, I've been writing the Discworld Monthly.
Ourselves and the German Discworld Convention have asked readers to ask Jason anything. And as a result, we've got a collection of questions, some of which we can categorically say who asked, and some we can't. So I'm going to start with the very first one, which was from Susie Eisfelder. She's involved in running the Australian Discworld Convention, and she wants to know, what was the prompt that made you begin to write a newsletter?
Like many things in life, it happened by accident. Back in 1995, when I got my first internet connection, I was looking for things to do with HTML to learn how to create web pages. So at the same sort of time, a gentleman called Chris Ewan decided to write a newsletter called Discworld Review. He wrote the first issue, and I said, "Have you got any web space?" And he goes, "No, I haven't." So I suggested that I would put his or host his newsletter on the internet. We did that, and he created a second issue, and that went up on our internet as well. But then he ran out of steam. He got tied up with university work and fell ill, so he didn't produce any more newsletters. And about shortly afterwards, Phil Penny from the Guilds of Fan and Disciples, the magazine that came out quite regularly, got in contact with me and said, "Are there going to be any more issues?" And I said, "Well, I don't think so, because Chris isn't well." And he suggested that, "Why don't you take over and start writing it?" I didn't think I had necessarily qualifications to write a newsletter. I didn't do particularly well at English, GCSE. So I kind of parked the idea for a while. But the seed of that idea was in my brain, and after a while I spoke to some friends and said, "Hey, look, do you think this is a fun thing to do? Shall we do this?" And with the support of Bill and Richard, we decided that we could give it a go. So I got in contact with Terry and emailed him and said, "Can I write a newsletter?" And he wrote back and said, "Sounds like perfectly normal fan activity," and gave him permission to go ahead.
Awesome. That actually leads into another question by Jonathan McBee, which says, "Tell us about your first time meeting Terry."
So the first time I met Terry in person was sometime in early 1998. So I went to a book signing in Reading, Far Street Bookshop, and I queued for 2 or 3 hours. And when I finally got to the front, Stephen Briggs and Terry were at the front. And so I got them to sign, I can't even remember which book I got them to sign, but I also got them to sign a first ever issue of Discworld Monthly.
Cool. Talking about the newsletter, there's quite a few questions here about it. How much time do you actually invest in maintaining the newsletter?
Far more time than I really should. It takes an awful lot of time to do it. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of time converting we work on a Google Doc, so we can both work on the document at the same time, and then we take that document and we put it through a program which then creates the web page version and the HTML version for the emails and the plain text version for the emails, and we put it all out together and we test it, and then we send out an issue. I think each issue is probably solid 10 to 15 hours of editing, and then with other ongoing information through the month.
Yeah, I'm going to add a bit to that as well, because a lot of the time, and Jason doesn't see this, but a lot of the time the stuff that I'm collating for the newsletter takes weeks. I find a little thread and I pull on it and I pull on it until I find what's attached to the other end, and that's the news, which is why sometimes we are the first to break the news on social media. But nowadays I tend to check with Rob whether I can break the news or not.
Yeah, don't get into trouble.
Don't want to get into trouble with Rob. With regards to the newsletter, somebody else has asked, do we sometimes struggle to collect enough content?
It's never been a problem in the past. When Terry was alive, he regularly fed us the information or some information we needed. It's become more difficult in the last few years, but we tended to drop the monthly now. So we tend to put out a newsletter when we have enough content to actually put it out. So it's not a problem. They just come out less frequently.
Okay. Do we know how many readers we have?
Oh, yeah, good question. Last time I checked, it was just over 19,000 subscribers.
Ah, that's subscribers. That's not necessarily readers. The amount of people that get directed to the website and only read the newsletter on the website.
Yes.
We don't really have that much of a clue, do we?
We don't. And we don't know how many of the 19,000 people actually read the email.
So
We know some of you do, because we get feedback and people do read them. So
yes, yeah. And when we threaten to stop producing quite so often, we get emails going, please don't, we love reading it, which is fabulous.
it's nice to get the feedback.
It's always nice to get the feedback. But with regards to that as well, do we know where our readers are from? And can we tell if there are countries with no or just a few readers?
We don't do that research, but I do remember back when the conflict was happening in Bosnia, getting a really nice email from a gentleman who read the newsletter and was still able to read it, even though the bombs were going off in the streets around him. He was still an avid Terry Pratchett fan, and he still loved to read the newsletter. So, yeah, I guess we've been read in war-torn countries, and I think we're read in most countries. I suspect.
Yeah, I think I can add to that as well. We get quite a lot of feedback on the socials from people all over the world as well. And not only that, when we went during the pandemic, when we were running online quizzes,
yes,
we had quite a lot of people dial in from varying countries all across the world, which was always great, especially when some of them said, this is the only time I get to hear English being spoken. And for them, it was really important. Even if they didn't take part in the quiz, to them, it was very important to sit and listen to us.
Yes.
Telling questions and chatting and being silly. And they were newsletter readers,
yes,
which, was quite important. As we both know, we're coming up to issue 300 soon in our lives.
Yes.
You never thought we'd ever get that far, did you?
I didn't think we'd get past issue 3. So I think we're doing quite well.
Somebody's asked, do we plan something special for issue 300, and can we tell them?
Can we tell them? Have we planned anything?
I'm laughing. I'm going, can you tell me?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we've ever really done big events. Even I don't think we have, and I don't think we've got any real major plans. We're out and about. That might well tie in with when we're in Fantasy Forest in July.
Yeah, I think that probably will tie up with us being in Cheltenham. Fantasy Forest, for those that don't know, is a huge outdoor convention in the grounds of a castle just outside Cheltenham. And there's 5,000 people a day come in and out, and there's stages with music, with everything from people singing with the Hobbits to Isengard and things like that. Plus, also there's you find everything from Doctor Who to Star Wars to Discworld to Anne Stokes artwork, all sorts and absolutely everything at an event. We were really privileged to be invited to go along and run a great big stand there.
Yes.
So I think we could sort of call that a minor celebration.
Have that as our celebration, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. We celebrate by working really hard and spreading the word about Terry, so there you go. Yes.
Which is, of course, something we do more of nowadays.
We do. We've recently come back from a thing called LARPCon, which they called the LARPCon of Magic, to celebrate 40 years of the Colour of Magic, which was a huge amount of fun. And we got to speak to a lot of Terry Pratchett fans who came along just to come and see us and speak to us. And I did a couple of talks, and I think people found it interesting because, I was lucky enough to, as many of you have been, to spend some time with Terry.
Yeah, and I think that's partially where our future lies more than anything. With no new book releases, I hate saying that terminology, but with no book releases, no more books from Terry, no new stuff from Terry. Yes, that's the best words. No new stuff from Terry. We rely on spreading the word about his works instead. Of course, A Stroke of the Pen is coming in October.
Say, new old stuff.
New old stuff. Stroke of the Pen is coming in October. If you hadn't heard about it, that's 20 new stories from, new old stories. New old stories.
Old stories that we haven't heard before, so new to us.
Yes, and I'm sure Pat Harkin can tell you much more about that.
He's there.
He's with you this
weekend.
Grab him,
buy him a pint, and he'll...
And ask him about the stories that are going into A Stroke of the Pen. Another question we had here was, talking about events, what was your favourite event or signing or whatever with Terry?
Okay, so this is a real personal one. I had a phone call from Rob, which said, "What are you doing on Thursday?" This is like Monday, and it's one of those phone calls where you check your diary with an eraser and you make sure there's nothing in there. So I was given a location to turn up to at a certain time, and that was all the information I had. So I turned up to this train station and waited around, and this Jag pulled up, and the window came down, and Rob was in it. Says, "Come on, get in." So I jumped in the car, and we drove around the corner, and ended up in Colin Smythe's house. Now, Colin Smythe is Terry's literary agent. So we went into to Colin's house and saw all his amazing Discworld stuff that he has there. And Terry was there with a glass of brandy in his hands, and he goes, "Right, are you ready?" And I said, "Yes, ready for what?" He goes, "Come on, jump in the car." So we jumped back in the car, and we drove, Rob, me and Terry, drove over to Pinewood Studios. And I got to spend about 7 or 8 hours with just me and Terry and watching some of The Colour of Magic being filmed. So it was a really, really great day because it was one-on-one time, and it was time spent with Terry, which was really personable because he was being Terry the person there, Terry the man, rather than Terry the persona. So that's probably my favourite experience, is just being lucky enough to spend that much time alone with Terry.
Of course, you spent other times with Terry as well.
Of course, yes.
You know,
I say, of course, I was really lucky. It's always an honour when you're able to spend time with Terry, and outside of just the events, because I tended to, at events, let Terry get on and speak to other people that haven't had a chance to speak to him. But there was a couple of times where we went out for a curry and with a group of people. But yeah, it was nice to actually be able to spend some time with Terry away from work stuff, if you like. Of
course, we still get those moments with Rob at events, don't we? I'm often sat in a corner with Rob being accosted by a million people for signatures and hugs, and telling him who some of the people are, because he doesn't necessarily know, because everybody knows Rob. Yeah. But Rob doesn't necessarily know everybody. And then, of course, we get to spend time with him away talking about what's going on and stuff, which is always great.
So we have to be really careful not to say things we know.
Oh, yes, we do spend a lot of time biting our tongues and not saying stuff we know.
Well, it was at one time when Terry said to me, I witnessed something in front of Terry, and it was something that was not meant to be public at the time. So he turned around to me and he goes, "You're not going to say anything about this, are you, Jason?" I said, "No, Terry, of course not." He goes, "Good. Because unlike God, I don't forgive." And I took that to heart. If Terry told you something that wasn't meant to go public, it didn't go public. You made sure of that, because for the respect of the man, you don't mess about with him. So
yeah, and that still applies. We still carry that forward with Rob, and with anything that like Bernard tells us, or Ian at the Discworld Emporium.
If it's told privately, it stays private.
It stays that way. It stays that way.
Indeed.
Which leads me on to the next question. What was our favourite news message or discovery that we could tell people about?
Okay, I think of recent times, I suspect it was actually the discovery of the 20 new stories that are coming out at the end of this in October. We knew about that for a few weeks, probably nearly a month.
Yeah, we knew just over about a month.
We knew it was coming out, but Robert told us it was coming out, but we had to keep quiet. We're on an embargo on that one, on gentleman's embargo, so we didn't say anything at all on that one. But that's as soon as we could, it was, yes, we're going to go out there, because this is exciting for us, because this is a chance to see and read something of Terry's that we haven't seen before. And it's some new material which we all miss. Yes,
and we were anybody in the UK was pretty fortunate in the fact that Rob read a little tiny bit of one of those stories on the radio in an interview about the book.
Yes,
and Rob, bless him, actually stumbled over his own words, because he was talking about a wizard. The story's about a wizard in a pub. in a place called Morpork, and Rob went to say Ankh-Morpork
Indeed.
and stumbled over his own words because it's that Discworld. This is why we're so excited about that book.
Yeah, they're not Discworld stories, but like a lot of the stories in the other anthologies, you can see the genesis of ideas where Terry was working out concepts and ideas that would later become parts of the Discworld.
Another question we've had about Discworld Monthly was, if you knew at the start of Discworld Monthly where it would take us, would you still have taken it on? And would you have done anything differently?
That's a good question. I don't think I would change anything, and overwhelmingly there's been more positive than negative. Even though it's a lot of work, I would still do it again because the opportunity it gave me, the chance to talk to Terry personally, I wouldn't give any of that up. And of course it gave me the opportunity, but through the conventions, I met my wife, Rach. So that's all those opportunities that wouldn't necessarily have happened if we didn't do it. So yeah, I wouldn't change a thing.
Not even April Fool's jokes.
You live and learn, don't you? And you to get to the way you are, you have to go through those mistakes and those issues, and that builds up the person you are. So no, I have no regrets.
Awesome. Now we have some Terry specific questions.
Okay.
So here we
This
go.
is where it all falls down.
Oh, this is where it all falls apart. This one's quite a serious one. They wanted to know what your thoughts were on how did Terry influence the fantasy genre, and if he was starting to write today as a young author, would he have been as successful as he was?
Crystal ball. I have no idea. What influence he had? He certainly has had an influence on it. In the same way that Douglas Adams had an influence on sci-fi writers after the Hitchhiker's Guide. Anyone that's followed on after Discworld, especially if it's comic fantasy, has to owe a certain amount of kudos to Terry, I think. Ben Aranovich is a big Terry Pratchett fan. Jodie Taylor. There's a lot of celebrity fans that probably grew up with Terry stuff and use that as an influence, if they knew it or not.
Okay, and it's quite weird, that as a question. Would he be successful as a young author today? I'm not sure. I'm personally not sure.
I can't imagine a world where Terry didn't exist.
No.
Up to this point. So how would you? It's
the brain does not work with that.
I don't think I can even attempt to answer that.
Straight a personal question here. In which direction would you like to see the Discworld franchise developing? Now we have to be careful because we know stuff.
Yes. Now, there's been a couple of missteps with adaptations, shall we say. I would actually like at some point a proper... I'd like the watch that Terry promised us. It's a watch TV program that Terry promised us back in 2012. The CSI Ankh-Morpork, the gritty drama that was a real proper bit of adult entertainment. That's the wrong word. Doesn't sound right. Grown-up entertainment. I would think that would be great. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see more films, more of the books made into adaptations. I love The Amazing Morris. I love the Snow Baby, the abominable Snow Baby. My brain's gone. I'd love to see more. Whether they're animations or live action. I'd just like to see them done with as much care and attention to detail as possible, and be faithful to Terry's vision.
Yeah, and personally, I think I would prefer to see it as TV adaptations. Good Omens showed us what could be done.
I think 6 hours is a good length to make a novel into. It allows the book to breathe, and it doesn't have to be so tightly compressed. So I think a 6 hour miniseries a selection of 6-hour miniseries would be great, and I'd be first in the row to go and sit and watch those.
Personally, I'll be very honest, and you can look at me rather than the camera because everybody will know where I'm sat. I'd like to see some more graphic novel adaptations of the books to make them more accessible to people. Because that's something that, from the social media side of things, I see a lot of, is people complain, this is going to sound weird, the books are too wordy. But they love the graphic novel adaptations.
I guess in a lot of ways, the reissue of all the audiobooks is a sort of step between those.
Yeah.
And it will encourage people to read those stories.
Yeah. Read works in many ways. It's however the words get to your brain.
As the words get to your brain in the right order, then I'm good with it. So it doesn't matter what format it is, as long as it gets in there and the stories are told.
Yes, exactly. But personally, I'd like to see more graphic novels. It's one of those things I enjoy myself.
It'd be interesting to see if they could ever produce another game as well.
Yeah, the games are always fun.
Given how technology's moved on.
Yes, video games we're talking about rather than board games.
Video games, yes.
Yes. There's a couple more questions in amongst this. Somebody wanted to know, do you know where Terry bought his hats?
And this is where my knowledge falls over. I don't, but I suspect Pat would.
And I'm sure it's more than one place.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've read somewhere it was more than one place.
He certainly picked them up when he was travelling as well, because I'm pretty sure he picked them up in Australia when he was out there. And so I'm sure, go buy Pat a pint, he'll tell you.
Trudy has asked, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you, Trudy, for asking. I'm very well, thank you. I'm enjoying life and having fun sitting in my lounge with all these lights pointing at me and a big camera pointing at me, talking rubbish, and hopefully it's entertaining for you guys.
I would like to say you're also busy. Busy?
Oh yeah, because we're working on. We've got lots of little projects that are going at the moment. So we've got a lot of Discworld Monthly projects. We've also got lots of Clamados holiday camp projects which we're working on as well. So I'm designing websites and we're making things. I can't really say what we're making, but
we can say the thing we're making for Fantasy Forest.
Okay, so we're in the planning stages of making life-size luggage.
Yes,
whatever life size, or sort of slightly bigger than life size.
I think it's larger than life.
So that's one of the next things. So that'd be fun. So expect me to come out with plasters all over my fingers as I chop fingers off and stuff like that. So wish me luck on that one. Sapient Pearwood bites back.
Yeah. Mark asked on Facebook. I'm sure some of you would have spied in varying places that we do stuff outside of the Discworld. Yes. Lots of things outside of Discworld Monthly. Yes. So would you like to tell the guys a little bit about the varying things we do on a normal level?
Okay, so when we're not doing the Discworld stuff, we do a lot of roller coasters. And in fact, next weekend we're off to Blackpool for a few days, and we're going to go and play on all the roller coasters there and have fun there. And then later on in the year we'd be doing Alton Towers and Drayton Manor, and then we have season tickets for our local park, which is called Oakwood, where we have a really good wooden coaster called Megaphobia. So when we're not running around doing Discworld stuff, like going into London on Easter Sunday just to go and watch so we do it. We live in South Wales, so it's about 4.5 hours for us to drive to London, which we're going to do on Sunday just to go and watch one 83-minute version of The Amazing Morris and then drive back home again. But we do it because we love Terry. But yeah, when we're not doing Discworld stuff, we spend a lot of time running around the country playing roller coasters wherever we can.
And occasionally opening tank exhibitions. Yes,
that would happen the other day. So Rachel entered a competition, a lookalike competition for Tank Girl, and it was a UK-wide competition, and she won. And so last week we were at the Bovington Tank Museum with Rachel sitting on top of a Fury tank, having photographs taken, dressed as Tank Girl.
Yes, and to answer Mark's question on Facebook, yes, it was as much fun as it looked.
It was a lot of fun, very tiring, but a good day.
Yes. I have one last question for you.
Oh.
Yes, I have one last question for you. How much longer do you think Discworld Monthly will continue to be?
I've always said, as long as it's still fun and there's stuff to write about, then I will keep doing it. It's obviously not as frequent as it was. We don't do it every month. In fact, when I finish this, I need to fire up the laptop and start working on the next issue, which will be out sometime soon, because we have got some stuff for the next issue.
Yeah.
All the time, it's still fun, and we still get enjoyment from it. And there's stuff to write about. We will keep writing it. I don't see an end point. I don't have a planned end point. So, is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. And I'm going to add to that as well, to everybody watching this right now. We accept articles. You know,
Yes.
if you want to write something about Terry or about his works or about something you've seen, like the stage adaptations.
Maybe you could write about the event you're currently at right now.
That's an idea.
And send a review to us. And if you send it to info@discworldmonthly.co.uk, we'll consider it for publication.
Yes.
There you go. We had to get that in, didn't we?
Oh, had to get the plug in.
Oh, by the way, if you want to come and visit us, just look up Discworld Monthly on the web, or on Facebook, or on Instagram,
or on Google, or Mastodon. We're on
Google.
On Google.
On Google search, not Google Plus.
No, on Google search. Yeah, Google Plus is long gone, isn't it? There's so many social media
Mastodon.
channels now. Mastodon, Twitter, Instagram.
We're on all of them somewhere, to some degree.
And we keep appearing on TikTok on varying things.
Yes.
But we don't generate content ourselves just yet.
No. So, and we'll be at various events, so do look us up. And if you see us, if you get an opportunity to come down and say hello, we're always happy to talk to people. We love talking about Terry, so come along and say hi.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's our time up.
Okay, so thank you for inviting me along, and thank you for having me. And I hope that you found it interesting and hopefully entertaining. So thank you very much. Bye.